In January 2026, a weather event named Winter Storm Fern carved a path of destruction from Texas all the way to Maine, leaving a trail of frozen chaos in its wake. This wasn't just a snow day. It was a catastrophic failure of our most essential service, and what happened here reveals a terrifying vulnerability that affects every single one of us. So, what exactly was Winter Storm Fern? Imagine the perfect storm of weather conditions. It started with a layer of super-cooled rain that froze instantly on contact, coating everything in a thick, heavy sheet of ice. Then came the sleet, adding more weight, and finally, a blanket of heavy, wet snow piled on top. This deadly combination created a worst-case scenario for our infrastructure. While northern states are used to snow, it was the southern states that suffered the most. Places like Tennessee, Arkansas, and even northern Texas have power grids that simply weren't built to withstand the immense weight of ice. Their systems are designed for heat waves, not historic freezes. And here's the part most people don't realize. It wasn't the snow that broke the grid. It was something far heavier and far more destructive. The real villain of this story is ice. To understand the sheer force we're talking about, let's break it down. Just a quarter-inch of ice accumulation on a single power line can add over 500 pounds of weight. Now, multiply that across miles and miles of cable. Winter Storm Fern dumped over half an inch of ice in many areas. That's 1,000 pounds, or the weight of a grand piano, hanging from a single span of wire. The result was inevitable. Power lines, weighed down beyond their breaking point, began to snap. Transformers exploded in flashes of green and blue light, but it wasn't just the lines. Massive tree limbs, encased in ice and weighing thousands of pounds, cracked and fell like matchsticks, crashing down onto the power infrastructure below. In Tennessee alone, over 330,000 households were plunged into darkness as the grid buckled under the impossible load. This wasn't a series of isolated outages. It was a systemic collapse caused by the simple physics of frozen water. While the ice was breaking the grid, the snow was paralyzing everything else. In the hardest hit regions, snow fell at a rate of 2 inches per hour. Within a day, entire cities were buried. Airports became ghost towns, with thousands of flights cancelled and travelers stranded indefinitely. The roads were even worse. Major highways turned into parking lots, littered with abandoned cars and jackknife trucks. But the most critical impact was on emergency services. Fire trucks, ambulances, and police cars were stuck, unable to navigate the treacherous, unplowed streets. And the utility crews, the very people needed to fix the broken grid, couldn't even get their trucks out of the garage. Imagine your heat goes out. The temperature inside your home is dropping below freezing, and you know that help can't even reach you. For millions, this wasn't a hypothetical. It was a terrifying reality. The storm didn't just cut the power, it cut off the lifelines. So, why was our grid so incredibly vulnerable? This event pulled back the curtain on a problem that experts have been warning about for decades. Much of the US power grid is old, with some components dating back over 50 years, long past their intended service life. The vast majority of our power lines are strung overhead on poles, completely exposed to weather, falling trees, and accidents. When one part of this interconnected system fails, it creates a domino effect. A falling tree takes out a power line. That outage might then shut down a local communications tower, cutting off cell service. Without power, traffic lights go dark, leading to gridlock that prevents repair crews from getting through. It's a fragile chain of dependencies. This storm wasn't just a weather event. It was a stress test that our aging infrastructure failed spectacularly. Which leads to a critical question. Should the US invest the trillions needed to bury its power lines, or is it already too late to protect our sprawling, outdated system? Let's visualize this cascading failure, because it's the key to understanding why the storm was so devastating. It starts with the first domino, power. The ice and wind snapped the lines, and the lights go out, the next domino to fall is transportation. Without electricity, traffic signals die, creating chaos at intersections. Gas station pumps stop working, so you can't refuel. Electric vehicle charging stations are useless. The roads become impassable, not just from snow, but from gridlock. This triggers the third domino, communication. Cell towers need power to operate. When their backup batteries run out, your phone becomes a paperweight. No calls, no internet, no way to get information or call for help. Finally, all of this culminates in the collapse of emergency response. Ambulances are stuck in traffic. 911 dispatch centers might lose power. Hospitals, running on generators, become overwhelmed. Each failure compounds the next, turning a massive power outage into a full-blown societal crisis. It's tempting to look at an event like Winter Storm Fern and call it a once-in-a-century storm, a freak occurrence. But the uncomfortable truth is, this might be the new normal. As our climate changes, we are seeing a documented increase in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events. Hurricanes are stronger, heat waves are hotter, and winter storms are delivering more precipitation in concentrated bursts. Our infrastructure, however, was designed for the more stable climate of the 20th century. It is simply not keeping up. We're trying to run a 21st century society on a system that is fundamentally unprepared for 21st century weather. This storm may not be the exception. It may be the warning. A clear and urgent signal that the way we power our lives is standing on fragile ground, and the next storm could be even worse. The situation seems dire, but it's not hopeless. There are concrete steps that can be taken to prevent a catastrophe like this from happening again. The most obvious is grid modernization. This means replacing old, fragile components with newer, more resilient technology. We can build stronger poles and use power lines designed to be more resistant to ice and high winds. A more transformative solution is decentralizing our power. Instead of relying solely on a few massive power plants connected by thousands of miles of vulnerable lines, we can build more microgrids. These are small, localized grids that can disconnect from the main grid and operate independently during an outage, powered by local sources like solar panels with battery storage. This ensures that even if the main grid goes down, critical facilities like hospitals, fire stations, and community shelters can keep their lights on. The story of Winter Storm Fern is a wake-up call. It's a glimpse into a future we must avoid. The technology to build a stronger, smarter, and more resilient grid exists today. The question is whether we have the collective will to make the necessary investments before the next big storm hits. If your power went out during Winter Storm Fern, comment your state below. Let's see just how widespread this was. And as you do, ask yourself a simple question. Are we ready for the next one? Thanks for watching. If you found this informative, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the systems that run our world.